Welcome to this documentary, Dad, It's Okay, I Love You. These words are words that good fathers love to hear. These words are very soothing. These words are like medicine to the heart, mind, and souls of good fathers. Dad, it's okay. I love you. I want to first say that I appreciate your time, appreciate you participating and actively being a part of my own personal journey in this documentary, Dad, It's Okay. I love you. A lot of fathers have experienced trauma and grief in their journey and in their pursuit of being a good dad. And there are so many different psychological and emotional experiences and grief, trauma that are draining to good dads. So I wanted to present a documentary of my own personal psychological and emotional draining through my experiences of grief and trauma, and how I have overcome, and also prerequisites to be able to provide support for other good fathers who have experienced and are currently experiencing grief and trauma. So as I am journeying through my complete healing process, I look forward to providing support for other good fathers. Before I read this disclaimer and resume this documentary, I want to point out one important fact. There are three distinct elements that prevent good dads, good fathers, from being actively involved in the lives of their children. Number one, narcissistic mothers. Number two, parental alienation. And number three, the gender bias and discrimination of those who represent the family court system. You will see and hear those three distinct elements being a part of my grief and trauma in this documentary. So for the disclaimer, this documentary and its contents through narrative and visual description is sensitive and true. This journey has caused many years of grief, trauma, and several mental health crises. The motivation for sharing this documentary is to complete the final step the final stage of my emotional and psychological healing process. Here's how my journey unfolded. So I have over 52, to be exact, 53 docket entries in the Pennsylvania Child Support Programs system known as PACES, PACSES, Pennsylvania's Automated Child Support Enforcement System. And my journey in this PACES system started long before 2013. However, I'm only going to highlight just my beginnings of the 52nd entry or the complaint for child support and the other information in this documentary that supports my journey and my experiences with 4 of my children. And so that journey began when their mother, my ex-wife, filed for a complaint for child support on April the 1st, 2013. And so let me say that divorce is never amicable. Divorce is never friendly. Divorce causes a lot of trauma for all parties involved, including a child or children. But in a lot of different instances, divorce, unfortunately, is necessary. However, the true losers in a divorce proceeding are the innocent victims who are children. One of the reasons why children, the innocent victims, are losers in that particular court proceeding known as divorce is because it is a breakdown of the family structure where the children or that child is accustomed to living in one household under one roof with both parents or step parents. And so when those two parties or parents part ways, separate, or divorce, it shakes the foundation of the lives of children in every facet of their lives, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, financially, and of course, physically. So in the family court system, there is a family court division. There's several of them, but this particular family court division is known as custody. And most of us already know what custody is, but in my experiences early on as a father, I did not realize that there were several different types of custody. There I know are 2 types of custody. You have physical custody, and then you have shared custody within the realm of physical. And then you have visitation, and then you have primary, partial, shared, visitation. That's one type of physical custody. And then the second type of custody is legal custody. So in this particular slide that you see that I put together, the actual court documentation, I actually filed for shared physical custody and shared legal custody of my children on January the 10th, 2014. I was notified by the Family Court Division Custodies Unit that my custody hearing will be scheduled on January the 12th, 2015. But because I did not think it was fair to have to wait an entire year and 2 days later for this custody hearing to take place, there is another step in the legal process that I took to try to expedite the scheduling of this custody hearing. And the reason why I was so adamant of filing for custody of my children is so that as much as I could possibly, I could basically bring my children some continuity in the process of being divorced, where they spend half the week with their mother and then the other half of the week with me. And there was some resistance with that by their mother, my ex-wife, but I did not let that deter me. I still navigated through the educational system to still maintain a relationship with my children and still being able to spend the limited time with them as much as I possibly could until this custody hearing would finally take place. So I would basically go to their schools to see them. There were several times I participated in certain activities in their school voluntarily, you know, to still be acclimated to maintaining a healthy relationship with my children. And so once I started realizing that there were other forms or methods rather to take or use to be able to expedite my original custody hearing, I filed what's known as expedited relief. I filed a motion to receive, you know, expedited relief. And expedited relief in a nutshell is basically a term that refers to the act of urging the court to push forward the date of a custody evaluation or a re-evaluation. And basically, a motion for expedited relief or expedited custody can reduce this time to a matter of a few weeks or possibly even sooner in extreme circumstances, such as emergencies that endanger the child. If an expedited custody is granted, both parties will be in front of a judge much sooner than they would if they were to wait for their scheduled hearing. Okay. And once I was informed of this filing procedure, as you will, I wanted to exercise my parental rights to be able to expedite my custody hearing. So what can be expected? What can expedited custody be? When can expedited custody be used? Where there's so many different reasons and situations where expedited custody should be requested, but the one that applied to me the most in my particular circumstance is when the other parent refuses the other's visitation rights. Okay, so that's what I did. I paid the filing fee. I had to go to a hearing to prove to the judge of that expedited custody hearing that there is conflict where I am not receiving the custodial time that basically that I was requesting from the mother to be able to spend adequate time with my children. And so the expedited relief court date after I filed on February 24th, 2014, the expedited relief court date was scheduled on May the 2nd, 2014. And to my comfort, expedited relief was granted. So the judge actually heard my case. I proved my case before the judge, and the judge granted my expedited relief. So I was so excited because I knew that once my expedited relief was granted, according to the law, that I would receive a court date much sooner, than the January 2015 court date, because of course, the law stated that if an expedited custody is granted, both parties will be in front of a judge much sooner than they would if they were to wait for their scheduled hearing. But this was the custody court date that was scheduled after expedited relief was granted. It was scheduled on January 20th, 2015. Now, let me take you back, for some of you that forgot the original custody scheduled court date. When I first filed for shared physical custody and shared legal custody, it was January the 12th, 2015, before expedited relief was granted. However, the custody hearing new scheduled date that I received after expedited relief was granted was literally 8 days later, which was January the 20th, 2015. So I filed on January the 10th, 2014. I was originally scheduled a custody hearing on January the 12th, 2015. In February of 2014, I filed a motion for expedited relief, which I was scheduled in May of 2014 to prove to the acting judge that I was not receiving any adequate custodial time with my children. And then once my expedited relief was granted, custody hearing date was scheduled on January the 20th, 2015, even though the law stated that I would receive a court date much sooner than the original schedule of the custody hearing of January 12th, 2015. So once that occurred, I definitely felt that there was some sort of bias, that took place within the family court system. That's how I felt, because I was following the law. I paid all the filing fees, and still I had to wait not only a year later, but a year and 8 days later from the original custody hearing date. But you know what? I didn't complain. I still navigated through the school district by still spending time with my children, whether I had to see them at their class trips, whether I had to go to their Christmas concert to support them, whether I had to just visit the school and see them for a few minutes and, show them some affection and encouragement. And even though I was getting only a little bit of time with them, I didn't make any excuses. I still stuck in there and utilized every method and alternative possible to maintain a relationship with my children, in spite of the resistance from their mother my ex-wife, to the point where I can recall a time where my son, he even told me in a brief conversation, and that brief conversation blessed my soul, by the way. He even told me these words. He said, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." And I thought that was awesome, because anytime a father hears their son say that, "Dad, I want to be just like you when I grow up," it does something to the soul of a man when he hears that. It encourages that father when he hears that. And one of the reasons why it encourages that father when he hears that is because that can be used as a barometer to show that father that he is being a good, healthy example for his son. And it's just so soothing to hear those words. And so on January 20th, 2015, of course, I went to the hearing that was scheduled after my expedited relief was granted. And I actually received some great news in that mediated agreement. And that was that I will share primary responsibilities with their mother through shared custody, shared physical custody, and shared legal custody. And I created and modified this particular schedule that revolved around my work schedule. And that was from Wednesday evening to Saturday afternoon, which was a total of 3.5 days per week. And so that schedule was maintained thoroughly. And in the process of that schedule being maintained thoroughly, I received some great news. The great news was that their mother, my ex-wife, she decided by her own volition, voluntarily, to terminate my child support. And I thought that that was good, because the reason why I thought that was good is because I really don't have anything truly against the child support system in the family court system. I think child support is necessary in certain circumstances. But what I don't agree with regards to child support is that it should be a one size fits all law. In other words, is if a father is a good father and he is, you know, basically um, providing for his children financially, he shouldn't have to pay child support. But that's just my personal opinion. But needless to say, child support in itself is not a bad thing. The problem is that it can be unbalanced when a mother manipulates the system out of bitterness, anger, retaliation, and any other reason besides a father intentionally abandoning or derelicting his financial obligation to his child or children. That's where the problem ensues. And so when their mother, my ex-wife, terminated child support, I thought that that was a good thing. So with that being said, what I didn't realize then at the time was that there was a hidden agenda for her to do that. And most of you may ask, well, what would be the hidden agenda? And the hidden agenda was $8,000. That was the hidden agenda. And, one of the things I want to do is put this in proper context for that hidden agenda to basically be exposed. And that is, since being recently granted shared physical and shared legal custody, I can legally prove that my children reside with me at least 182.5 days out of a year moving forward. Okay. Now, you all just saw my custodial agreement, and if you conduct the math, that's basically what you will come up to when we're talking about having shared physical custody of my children. And let me say this to the people in the back so that they can hear it very clearly. Deadbeat dads, they won't even get their children overnight for at least one day or even more than one day out of a week. So 182 and a half days out of an entire year doesn't qualify me or any other good father as a deadbeat dad. I just wanted to say that for the people in the back that have heard the contrary. Now, I also, putting this back in context, I have been successfully maintaining those monthly child support payments. In fact, those two modifications that I just mentioned was about to take place in my favor moving forward. And so because of that, a significant reduction in monthly child support payments would take place. And also the ability to receive the income tax refunds will also take place as long as I file before her. Many of you understand that process with regards to the guidelines and laws of the Internal Revenue Service with regards to having two parents provide equal time overnight with their child. You know, you'll be able to file the income tax return with regards to receiving the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. There are some other factors involved as far as income and all of those other things. However, I think you all get the point. And so basically, instead of facing an extremely reduced monthly child support check, and instead of the major possibility of not filing an income tax return because she was working under the table mainly, and obviously, if she's not able to file the income tax return, she wouldn't receive a large sum of income tax refund through the earned income credit or the child tax credit. So she proposed an offer to me. And basically the offer was very, very simple, that realizing these two factors would impact her money supply. Let me repeat that. Realizing these two factors would impact her money supply. Had nothing to do with the children, but her money supply would be impacted if these two things would take place. Then obviously she wouldn't have the leverage to file. But because she wanted to have the leverage to secure the $8,000 check that she would receive based on her income and based on the family size and based on the dependence of having 4 children, of course, that next month, March and April of 2015, she would be able to benefit from that. So, obviously she was able to benefit from that. And then obviously moving forward after that, she would always continue to benefit, from the income tax refund based on the family size as far as dependents are concerned and her limited income. Okay, so moving right along throughout the whole year of 2015 and entering into 2016, my ex had constantly stalked and harassed me on numerous occasions post-divorce. I won't get into the logistics of how, when, and what other factors occurred because it's not important and it's totally irrelevant. However, this incident included domestic violence. This particular incident included domestic violence, and that's what led me to obtain legal protection. Okay, what I did was I filed a protection from abuse order. Some may call it a restraining order. Some may refer to it as a PFA, which I filed that to be able to use every legal resource and method available to protect myself from being involved in any more domestic violence situations. In fact, I have an entire history with this particular woman, my ex-wife, of domestic violence. And when I say that, I mean it in the sense that not me being the aggressor or striking or hitting or assaulting her physically or sexually, by the way. But actually, I would become the victim of that, and verbal abuse and terroristic threats as well in my history with her. So it took me many years to get to this place. However, I actually moved forward with this process. And this is why on January 30th, 2016, I believe I was issued the PFA order temporarily. Also, I wanted to share this because this is important, equally important. Any men out there, whether you are a father or not, I encourage you that if you are involved in any type of domestic violence environments with a woman, I definitely encourage you to move forward with pursuing every legal avenue to protect yourself without being physically or verbally abusive or violent with a woman, or putting your hands on a woman, and different things of that nature. And I know sometimes it gets so heated where the emotions of both parties, particularly the man, gets the best of a man. And then, of course, you take matters in your own hands. And then when law enforcement have to get involved, unfortunately, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the woman's word will supersede the actual events that occurred. So I encourage all fathers and men in general to get legal documentation to exclude yourself from any domestic violence environments. And I will also say that one thing that I know about women, especially when they are the aggressor or initiator of domestic violence, they will respect the paperwork. Moving right along. Now, there was a temporary 90-day protection from abuse order granted to me, which we had a hearing on February the 3rd, 2016, a few days after she received the PFA order. And so our upcoming court date was in May of 2016. And so with all of this domestic violence continuously happening, and me finally understanding the importance of utilizing every legal method to be able to protect myself and exclude myself from all types of domestic violence environments, I realized that because I wasn't being stalked, harassed, and being a part of any domestic violence environments with my ex-wife, the mother of my children, at that particular time, after the PFA was enforced by the judge, I was able to start focusing more on some of the other issues that I've had within myself. And one of those issues was how can I word this? Excruciating. Yeah, I'll say that the excruciating psychological and emotionally draining processes and experiences I was going through within myself privately for 12 years at that time, because I was uncertain of the role that I should play in my oldest daughter's life, because I had doubts of being her actual biological father, because years prior, many years prior, in the preliminary stages of my engagement or relationship with my ex-wife, there was a lengthy sexual affair that was discovered between her and my biological brother. Okay, my biological brother shares the same mother and the same father with me, and that was one of the fears that I had of coming to grips, if the truth came out, that I would not be the biological father and I would actually be my oldest daughter's uncle, after obviously been raising her since she was born in 2004. But I overcame those fears, and then I actually went to one of the retail stores and purchased a at-home DNA kit, which I administered myself and on my oldest daughter at the time. And the results basically came back from the company known as Identigene. It came back that that the results probability of paternity was that I was 99.9999998% the father of my oldest daughter. Now, the significance of me bringing this up is because this was literally um, the next month after the PFA was granted in the year of 2016. So I wanted to go through that process of journeying there. I was excited to see that there was a post dated on my ex-wife's Facebook page on March the 3rd, 2016, which was 30 days after our PFA hearing, where I believe she started to be more committed to a man in a relationship setting. Okay, and I say that because to my defense, I was trying to basically make sure that I wouldn't be harassed or stalked or uh, be involved in any more domestic violence environments with her, because now she can focus her efforts on basically a committed relationship and not me. But to my surprise, to my discouragement, and to my dismay, there was a retaliation that occurred when my ex-wife, the mother of my children, filed a new complaint of child support on April the 6th, 2016, which obviously we all know today, based on the slides that I just presented, that this was literally 1 year and 1 month after child support was terminated, okay, voluntarily by her. So basically this was a form of retaliation, not because I was derelicting or abandoning my financial obligation to my children, but because of her, I guess, still having some issues with being angry that the PFA order against her was granted. Okay, I want to put that out there because it's very important, as I mentioned before, about child support. In itself isn't a bad thing, but it becomes unbalanced when a mother manipulates the system out of bitterness, anger, retaliation, and any other reason besides a father intentionally abandoning and derelicting his financial obligation to his child or children, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, and so there was a new complaint for child support filed against me. And of course, this was 30 days after the PFA was granted at our hearing, and then of course 30 days preceding our upcoming PFA hearing, as I mentioned earlier, scheduled in May of 2016. And so basically, when we went to court, she basically requested that I drop the PFA order at our upcoming hearing, and that she would not move forward with the child support hearing while we were actually at court. And I knew she was using the system against me. And I also knew that her filing it was a form of injustice because my children were still living with me 3.5 days out of the week as per our shared physical custody agreement. So there was no point of me having to pay child support if I was actually financially taking care of my children while they were in my care, of course. But needless to say, I agreed because I did not want to be put back on child support because it was unnecessary. And I understand that when a mother doesn't work aggressively in the workforce, or she limits her availabilities with regards to being in the workforce, then of course, the less she make, the more the father would have to pay. And of course, if she's receiving any type of welfare assistance or government assistance, such as food stamps and SNAP benefits, TANF, which is cash benefits, or medical assistance for herself and or the child or children involved in the case, most likely the defendant, which is usually the father, will basically have to pay. Needless to say, we made an agreement for me to drop the PFA order and she would drop the child support order, and that's exactly what happened. To my surprise, the following month, on June 19th of 2016, there was a Father's Day card given to my children to give to me from their mother, my ex-wife. And I'm going to read these words to you because I think they are very important and very imperative for me to do so that you can understand the context of why I had these issues with her through the family court system with regards to being a father. Okay, so let me read a card that was given to me by my ex-wife, the mother of my children. For a great guy on Father's Day. There's a lot of talk about character these days. Honesty, decency, goodness. but that's nothing new to me. I've always known someone who is as good as his word, who puts his family first, and who never gives anything less than his best. You. Happy Father's Day. Hope you enjoyed this day, which is my name that she wrote. And then she put Love J, which was a pet name that I gave her when we first met, I guess in the year of 2000. Okay, so that was 16 years prior to receiving this card. That was the pet name that I gave her to basically hyphen her first name. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is that when a mother sends a father this type of card, with all sincerity and being very genuine, you can see that this father that's being described in this card does not sound like a deadbeat father, even though publicly my reputation and my character was being assassinated with lies of me being a deadbeat dad, amongst some other things that were told to the public, smear campaigns and different things of that nature. And 85% of the things that people heard about me were not true. I just didn't publicly defend myself. But needless to say, this is a true description of my character. And that's why I appreciate this card. But to my surprise, to my discouragement, and to my dismay, several months following providing me this great Father's Day card that said for a great guy and a great father on Father's Day, there was another complaint for child support filed by my ex, the mother of my children. I'm not going to go into great detail because it's not important. It's not relevant to fatherhood. But in July of 2016, nearly a month following her providing me with that Father's Day card through my children, she came to the home, my home, uninvited and intoxicated. And she basically was providing me several proposals, as usual, but only this time I declined those proposals, and I actually kicked her out and asked her to leave my home. And she did leave, but needless to say, she moved another man into her home 2 months later in September of 2016. And then, of course, a month after that, in October, she actually filed for child support again. Once again, my children were residing with me 3.5 days out of the week, as per our shared physical custody agreement. So there's no purpose of filing a new complaint for child support again for the third time if my children were in my custody and I wasn't derelicting my financial obligation to them. But this is the type of processes that I had to go through that was psychologically and emotionally draining me, because there's a system involved now to be able to enforce these false allegations that was basically a form of injustice because it was filed through retaliation. And so we had to go to court on November the 15th, 2016. And of course, as you can see, there was a judgment for her, the plaintiff, to receive $1,316.17 in monthly child support payments. And the reason why it was the $1,316.17 is because there were 3 guideline deviations that actually gave me some of those significant reductions. And of course, shared physical custody was one of them. But needless to say, if those 3 guideline deviations did not take effect in my circumstance at that time, I think according to the child support calculator, it would have came up that I had to pay probably $1,750 per month. Okay, but once again, $1,316.17 is still nothing to sneeze at. A few days after we left court, I went right into the studio. Many of you that know me know that I rap. I've been rapping all my life as an artist, not to be like signed to any major label or anything like that. It's just initially when I was a teenager, yes, but then as time progressed, I developed a desire to just use it as a hobby and as an outlet to express myself when I'm emotionally drained or financially going through some issues or psychologically going through some issues. And basically I went right in the recording studio, and this is the actual song. You can go check it out on YouTube in its entirety, where I basically wrote the lyrics, and I actually went into the booth, as we call it as artists, and I was basically sharing some of my frustrations that I had to experience throughout the process of this whole child support matter over the years. And then, of course, my reputation, my character was being assassinated behind my back to the public and to other people that grew up with me, people that went to different religious functions with me, people that know me on the workforce and different things of that nature. I started to believe some of these lies of me being a poor father or a deadbeat dad. So I just wanted to express myself, and I won't go reading the lyrics, but these are some of the lyrics that was written, and the ones I highlighted and read are the ones that more so stick out about my situation that I was dealing with. So in 2016, it was really, really a draining year psychologically and emotionally, and of course financially for me as a father, because I had to start standing back or taking a few steps back to evaluate what was taking place in my life, and things started to unravel. And so I wanted to give a snapshot of all of the different slides that I showed you previously to show, some of the issues that I was going through emotionally and psychologically from January the 31st to February the 3rd. She posted March. I guess she had a new boyfriend, which I thought was a good thing. But that didn't stop her 30 days after that in April for filing a new child support complaint against me. We made an agreement that child support wouldn't need to be enforced or even going through the actual hearing in May. And then the next month after that, in June, there was the Father's Day card that I was presented. And then in July, as I mentioned before, she came to my home, intoxicated, uninvited. And I didn't include this before, but I'll also include aroused. But once again, that has nothing to do with any of this, because that's a separate situation. I'm just only dealing with my experiences as a father. So I'm not going to go in detail about that, but you all get the gist of what I'm saying. So I definitely did ask her to leave my home, and I hate to be frank about it, but I basically kicked her out. It just sounds really condescending, but like I said, once again, you guys get the point. That happened in July. In September, I was notified by my children, which I have evidence of, but I'm not going to present that because I want to protect their identities. But in any event, she moved her new boyfriend in the home with them in September. And of course, in October, she actually filed a new complaint for support again. And in November, as you can see, I was enforced to have to pay her $1,316.17 to be exact. And so what I did within the next few months, because myself and my children was going through a lot of psychological and emotional draining by their mother, and physical abuse as well, where it was taking place, not towards me, but more so directly towards my children. And so I was trying to provide them some emotional support by utilizing my my medical benefits at work with regards to behavioral health services, family therapy and counseling for myself and my children. And these are just some of the emails. I have a lot of them, but for the scope of this documentary, I don't want to present too many of them. We'll be here all night. But these are some of the emails that I was corresponding with the therapist, the professional licensed family and marriage therapist, family counselor, that I was so I was providing emotional support for myself and my children throughout all of the duration of these years of the physical, emotional, and psychological draining that was taking place by their mother, my ex-wife. I went to the studio I'm just putting this out there because I did a song with my daughters and for my daughters live when they were literally in the booth with me. And these are just some of the lyrics of that particular song. I think we have that on YouTube as well, where I actually was expressing myself to my daughters as a father and just telling them that I support them and I love them and just giving them some history of my excitement of being their father and just some of the things that I realized as a young man, being 19, 20 years old, and obviously my journey of being a father. So I just wanted to express certain things to my daughters from a father's standpoint directly in the studio for them. Moving forward, I filed a petition to modify my existing child support order. As you can see, March 16th, 2018, and then there was a modification conference scheduled in April the 5th. Obviously, a few weeks later, of course, I paid the filing fee then. And then on the same day of March 16th, 2018, I actually filed a petition to modify our custodial agreement because things have changed in my life. I moved to Texas through a verbal agreement that was made to me privately by their mother that she would allow the children to spend the summers with me, and we would modify the custodial agreement where I would come visit Philadelphia periodically as well to maintain continuity in the lives of my children outside of the summer months. But when it was time to appear in court on May 7th, 2018, she never showed up, which is the reason why my children were not allowed to go to Texas with me, unfortunately, and I had to keep on visiting Philadelphia sometimes every 2 weeks, sometimes if my money was right, every once a month, but mainly it was basically twice a month to be able to maintain enough continuity as much as it was within my legal rights, number one, and obviously financial, my financial abilities, as well. And it was very tough. I have evidence of every time I jumped on that airplane to come visit Philadelphia. So any discrepancies with that, I'm open to any challenge that I was not trying to be actively involved in my children's lives, even though I had to wait for a custody hearing. And of course, that didn't work out well because she never attended. And, still making no excuses, still been actively involved in the lives of my children. But in the process, it was still psychologically and emotionally draining because I was paying my child support payments on time, every month. My wages were being garnished, but yet and still, I was not able to spend the adequate time necessary for my children. And there were some other issues as well preventing that, where she began to withhold them, but I did not know the reasons and I did not understand that was going on privately until later on in my life, which you will see in just a few seconds. But with that being said, on October 4th, 2018, there were some exceptions filed through my attorney, support exceptions to be exact, but they were denied for whatever reason. I'm not here to say that I was completely right, and the courts were totally wrong in that situation because I didn't understand every little nuances that the judge was, or factors rather, that the judge was denying my exceptions. But it is what it is, and I still had to make my child support payments every month anyway, and basically still visit my children. Subsequently, following that, within about 6 months, I received a private conversation and a phone call from my children, not from their cell phones personally, but from their mother's cell phone, which I didn't realize then was a part of how can I say this? It was part of a premeditated plot to get me to route back to Philadelphia. I didn't realize it then, but I received a phone call from my children privately from their mother's phone. My children practically was begging me to come back to Philadelphia to be with them and to live with them, not with them and their mother, but actually, maintain stability back to Philadelphia, basically to be able to live with my children. I did oblige that, just like any other good father would. And then I started to reroute my entire journey from Texas back to Philadelphia, where it changed from me just visiting Philadelphia to spend a lot of time with my children, but now to me rearranging my whole entire life and my lifestyle to come back to Philadelphia uh, for my children. And all of that basically started somewhere in the month of June of 2019. And then subsequently following that, I began to utilize my shared legal custody agreement to make an agreement with their mother to enroll them in a different school system from Philadelphia school system. No disrespect to Philadelphia School District, which I was an employee of one time in my life years ago. But anyway, not a knock on them, but everybody from Philadelphia knows this to be a fact that the public school system in Philadelphia is not that good, even though I'm sure, the district is trying the best that they can over the many decades to, change that stigma. But unfortunately, when you have public school that's underfunded, or poorly funded, or, poor statistics and poor testing results, statewide testing results from students, and limited graduation ratios and different things of that nature. These things happen all across the country, but I was just basically referring to Philadelphia's school district. And so I wanted my children to have the opportunity of experiencing a more structured and more higher academic educational experiences in the county school, and that's why you see their child health assessments here and their immunization administration records that I went to take them to their primary physician to get their immunization shots up to date and make sure that their health was intact, and that they passed their physicals and different things. These are prerequisites to basically enroll a child in the school. Most of you parents already know this already. One of the things that I did also, after learning the minimum age requirement for minors to legally work in Montgomery County, which was 14 years old, I actually took my two older daughters to receive their required work permits and assisted them in their job search for the first time. Okay, so these are the live work permits. I basically helped file on behalf of my daughters. Of course, obviously they were with me. That's why you see their signatures where it says signature of minor on these work permits. And I thought that was a great experience. We had a lot of great moments in the process of searching for jobs together as father and daughters and different things of that nature. It was just a great experience. And I really took pride in that as a father. I also took my children to open new checking accounts and savings accounts, but more so what you see on your screen now is the mail of their debit cards from the bank, and just was teaching them the importance of financial literacy and teaching them the importance of entrepreneurship and just passing down some of the financial literacy information that I didn't receive when I was a kid. Unfortunately, my mom, who raised me as a single mother, did not have the education nor the resources to be able to do that. And so basically my kids' first credit cards via Capital One, they were issued to them. I made them authorized users on several different, credit cards to give them that start while I was teaching them about, financial literacy, credit, management of their finances, budgeting. And of course, I was teaching them as per their developmental stages and their ages, at that time. So I made it more fun. I made it into like a kiddie classroom setting to basically break it all down to them, not in one sitting, over a period of time. This is the receipts when we went to the movies. This is the first time that they were able to utilize their credit cards. And I wanted to document this because I think this is important and I take pride in this. In February of 2019, we went to the movies. I paid for the tickets, but I wanted them to see how it felt to experience paying for, their little snacks that they wanted at the movies, to use their credit cards, sign their signature on the receipts, and then, get that experience like, wow, and then teaching them the difference between a debit card and a credit card. So I just thought that was a great time that we had on this particular day. We went several other places, but I wanted to document the movies because that was the first time they utilized their credit cards. And I just thought that was really cool. And these are letters that were sent to me on behalf of the Methacton School District for all of my children whom I just enrolled. And this is how they were basically able to have their portal system and access to it, myself included. This is the letters that I received, from the Methacton School District. Subsequently, following that, months later, I was teaching my daughter who had just turned, she had just turned 16 years old in this photo, and I was teaching her how to drive. And that's me in the passenger seat over there on the right-hand side photo. And I was teaching her how to drive in a big parking lot, and she did such a great job, her first time. And I'm so proud of her. The thing about it was I was trying to help her and my other daughter receive their driver's permit, to teach them how to drive. And then obviously they'll take their road test, and they'll be able to receive their junior's driver license here in Pennsylvania at the age of 17 years old, such as what I did when I was 16 years old, receiving my driver's permit, and then, of course, at 17, receiving my junior's driver's permit. So I wanted to teach my daughter how to drive. I wanted to show you guys that. I thought that was really cool. But at that time, I didn't have the custody structured in a way where my children would be able to leave from my home, where I was living at the time, to be able to go to school without interfering with our shared physical custody agreement, because my ex-wife told me she did not want to take them to school or get them to the bus because she lived in Philadelphia County. So I thought the best thing to do, obviously, was to have them live with me full-time so that they can experience, better education and obviously higher academic experiences for their future. Okay. And so even though that was verbally agreed upon, I wanted to make sure we got that documented through the court so that I wouldn't be overstepping my boundaries legally, as if I was actually utilizing her custody time to be able to make sure they got to school on time from my home. Of course, being in the same county and living in the same county and those different things. Most of you understood that. So I filed on July 12th, 2019, for the modification of custody. As you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the actual reason why I wanted to modify. And it's very clear. Father requests to increase his custodial time moving back to Philadelphia. Very, very simple. The custody master's hearing was on August 7th, 2019. And of course, I paid the filing fee to receive that court date. Okay, so on the same day of July 12th, 2019, as always, since I'm already down at the family court building, I'm going to file for a modification of my child support on the same day. Same thing I did before. So that's exactly what I did on July 12th, 2019. Issued a court date on August the 21st, 2019. And of course, there was a separate filing fee that I paid to receive that court date as well. Okay. And so moving right along, I apologize. I hit the button twice. I don't think it's going to let me go back to the previous slide, but basically the previous slide was an actual protection from abuse order that was issued to me on behalf of my children from Montgomery County's court because there were some physical abuse allegations and terroristic threats and verbal abuse as well by my ex-wife, their mother, towards them, and the verbal part was more so towards me. Physical abuse allegations were more so towards them. So the Department of Human Services, we call it DHS in Philadelphia, might be called DIPUS in New Jersey, it might be called CPS in Texas, but DHS did get involved, and they contacted me stating that, of course, they had to privately interview my children, and they also had to conduct an inspection at the home that I was residing with my children. Needless to say, this was the third, unbeknownst to the public, this was the third consecutive DHS case against the mother of my children, my ex-wife, from 2016 all the way to 2019. Okay, just wanted to put that out there. So once again, remember there was a custody hearing on August the 7th. I showed you that slide previously. In 2019, excuse me, where we had to go to court. But on August 13th, this was the post directly from my ex-wife, the mother of my children's Facebook page, where she lied on me and said that I kidnapped my children, deceiving the public, smear campaigning. Again, these are all characteristics of personality disorder, may I add. However, this was the post that was presented publicly with my children's pictures. They were not blanked out or blacked out or redacted in the live post, but I actually redacted their identities to preserve and protect them, considering this documentary. Okay, so the ruling for shared custody still remained. And of course, she was angry about that. The DHS allegations obviously will, as you all can imagine, it will basically do something in a negative way as far as her image is concerned. So this post right here was basically to protect her image and basically use the smear campaign method to be able to protect that image and then defame, my character. Just wanted to put that out there. And so at this point, there's some more retaliations and lies that was obviously subsequently following that PFA order and the DHS investigation. Obviously, DHS already notified her prior to this date, just like they notified me prior to that date, number one. And then number two, there was a child support hearing scheduled on August the 21st, 2019, which you've seen these previous slides before, but you didn't see this slide here. And this was the petition that she filed for contempt on August 13th, 2019, obviously the same day that she posted on Facebook that the children were missing. And if you read line 4, it's clearly stating that the mother states that father has not returned children to her. If you do your math very quickly, you will see that she filed this contempt order against me on August 13th, nearly 8 days prior to us going to our modification child support hearing on August 21st, 2019. And so basically, she filed a contempt order to have documentation as proof that I quote unquote stole or kidnapped my kids from her because she needed a reason for the courts to resume the child support order to continue to have the abilities to collect the $1,316.17 per month. And so I wanted to pull up the 2019 calendar to show the actual dates and actually what occurred based on the previous slides I just presented. So on August 3rd, she said that the kids were missing. Not to the police, by the way. Just wanted to put that out there. There were no police reports claiming that the children were missing. Obviously, she said in her own post by her own admission that the Montgomery County Police Department nor the Philadelphia Police Department would not provide her any assistance. Okay, but in any event, on the 13th, in that post of August, she said that the children were missing for 10 days, which would mean that the missing part began on August the 3rd. 10 days preceding August 13th is on August 3rd, claiming that they were missing. We had a custody modification hearing scheduled on August the 7th. On August the 13th, that's when, of course, once again, she posted the Facebook post, kids were missing. And of course, subsequently following that in the same day, she filed a contempt order against me. Obviously, that was 8 days prior to our child support modification, which was scheduled for August the 21st. Once again, leading to my psychological and emotional draining experiences throughout this whole process. Man, it's not letting me do this. It keeps skipping. Every time I click this button, it keeps skipping slides. Well, the slide before, I'm gonna try to see if I can point it back up to you guys. And I appreciate your time as well, journeying with me, ladies and gentlemen. And because we have all these court documents being presented, I might as well call you members of the jury as well. But those previous slides show that on August the 21st, there was a hearing. As you already saw those slides before that, August the 21st, 2019, there was a child support modification hearing, but it was rescheduled to September 27th, 2019. And there was a form of gender bias as well by the conference officer, because I had clear evidence and proof that I maintained full custody of my children because the courts gave me full custody of the children, which superseded our previous shared physical custody agreement because of the DHS allegations and the physical abuse and alcohol abuse and terroristic threats and verbal abuse as well. That was initiated by the mother of my children, my ex-wife, towards our children. But I actually did not want to proceed with the bias of the conference officer on September 27th because I had evidence that I maintained full custody of my children. So my child support case should have been either suspended or terminated altogether. And I say suspended because obviously the PFA order was only in effect for 90 days until we went back to court for my children. But that was not the case. The conference officer was believing every word that she was saying, even though I had documentation in black and white proving that I had full custody of them. And he refused to suspend or even terminate, but I'll just be fair and say suspend my child support order, okay, while the children were in my care for a time. So once I disputed that, then there was another court date issued to me and her on November 14, 2019, to appear before another conference officer who was acting as the court master and so with that being said, this is a piece of the protection from abuse order that the courts gave me on behalf of my children because of those allegations. This is a piece of it. So this was the same piece that you would have seen in the previous slide that skipped by an accident. But in any event, for the sake of my children being afraid to testify in public court in the very presence of their mother and the psychological and emotional toll that process was having on them, I was legally advised by the child family advocate, who was an attorney acting on the representation of children. It will be in the best interest of my children to withdraw the PFA instead of them actually testifying, which would then release me from having full custody, physical custody of the children, and then we would have to resume our shared custody agreement. And that was signed by myself and the actual attorney for those my minor children on, you see the dates on the left, October the 21st, 2019. You know, the significance of that is that on the same day of October 21st, 2019, and the 2 or 3 days subsequently following, I was notified through email that the kids were absent from school because they were in her care, and I was under the impression that they would still go back to school over after the weekend was over. She would basically take them to school or take them to their school bus stop to be able to maintain their school scheduling. But once again, to my discouragement, my dismay, and even to my surprise, my children were being marked absent from school, which the Medacton School District sent me these emails to notify me about that. And so basically what occurred is that their mother, my ex-wife, intentionally didn't take them to school. And what she did was she transferred them back into Philadelphia School District without my knowledge or consent as per our shared legal custody agreement. And she did this not because the children did not want to go to that good school and experience a great academic experience, but her whole entire motive was to regain food stamps, medical assistance, and of course, child support. Okay, so I wanted to point that out there, and I wanted to put some statistics up to show you why this was overwhelming. This information was overwhelming to me, and it traumatized myself, and it traumatized my children, and it provided psychological and emotional draining because of all of the steps that I had to take to be able to get them into this school, including residency as well. And they get transferred out. So let's look at some stats according to schooldigger.com. The school that I enrolled them in, Methacton High School, is ranked, according to School Digger rank, they were ranked 55th of 537 Pennsylvania high schools, where the schools that my two oldest daughters were transferred to from Methacton High School, according to School Digger rank, was 535th of 537 Pennsylvania high schools. Okay, so I don't have to tell you the stats or the differences of the actual curriculum and the academic experiences that students face uh, in their schooling. When you talk about comparing Methacton High School from Martin Luther King High School, and anybody that is born and raised in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, you already know about Martin Luther King Jr. High School. Okay, but let's just put out some statistics from the same year that my children were transferred from Methacton High School to Martin Luther King High School in the year of 2019, which is the year in question. So you see the stats there. The average standard score for Methacton High School is 84.67. The statewide rank is 67th out of 693 high schools in the state. Okay, the Pennsylvania state percentage is 90.3%. But let's look at, on the contrary, Martin Luther King Jr.'s high school stats, according to School Digger. This is not my words. This is according to School Digger. You can all cross-reference this. You want to pull this up on a School Digger or on Google or whatnot, and you'll see that the average standard score for Martin Luther King High School in 2019 was 0.78. The statewide rank was 686 out of 693 total ranked high schools in the state of Pennsylvania. And then, of course, the Pennsylvania state percentage was 1.0%. And by the way, just wanted to point this out there, this is important. In 2019, and of course, the previous years preceding 2019, Martin Luther King Jr. High School had a 51% graduation ratio of seniors, okay? Very important. These are the last paychecks of both of my oldest daughters that I picked up from their jobs due to them not returning back to work, excuse me, because their mother stopped them from working. And then that's when she began withholding them from me exactly 9 months following this. So this is a few days before I was notified from the Methacton School District informing me that my children were absent from school. So just so y'all can see that if my children were in my care like they were supposed to be, then obviously they would receive their last paychecks from their actual job that I actually greatly assisted with helping them get. And this was their first job, and we were so excited about it, myself and my children. We were just real excited, but it was unfortunate that I had to go and pick their last paychecks up, and I did not get the opportunity to give them their last paychecks to them physically because they were not allowed to be back in my care for a total of 9 months. And so she violated our shared custody agreement. And so according to the original custody agreement, as you all remember, my original custody agreement was Wednesday through Saturday, having my children overnight with me. So Wednesday fell, it's a 2019 calendar, Wednesday fell on October 23rd, which she was supposed to place them in my care. She never did. I had to go to the police report the next day, which is I filed a police report on October 24th, 2019. Okay, and this is the DC number up top. The police officer wrote his or her name. I'm not going to reveal the gender, but his or her name, which was redacted for their protection, and the actual street of the address that my children resided with their mother in. Okay, I wanted to point that out there as well. So, excuse me. And so, months following that, now mind you, the whole time, two things was occurring. Number one, I wasn't able to spend any time with my children because their mother was physically withholding them from me and refusing to respect and adhere to our shared physical custody agreement and our shared legal custody agreement. And the second thing was still publicly putting on a smear campaign was spreading rumors and lies about my character and assassinating me and defaming me and making people believe through lies and retaliation that I was not a good father, but to the contrary, that I was a deadbeat dad. Okay. And if you look on the left, this was documents filed to modify our current custody agreement on November 7th, 2019. And you can read the lines 9 and 10, where it states that mother states father is not getting the children when ordered. And if he does take children, he leaves them with other people. And then number 10, the reason for this modification was, and it states here, not my words, but it states here, mother is requesting primary physical custody of children and sole legal custody. Okay, so in essence, she's basically stating that I am not getting my children, even though we all know that she was withholding them from me. But once again, going into the court system lying, saying that I wasn't getting them, when in all actuality, she was withholding them from me. And then not only that, the consequence for the retaliation, or through retaliation rather, retaliation against me, as you can see in 10, that she wanted to take the limited custody I was already receiving, which was shared custody. She wanted primary physical custody of children and sole legal custody. And if you looked at all of the slides preceding this one, you would notice that all of her filings was basically complaining about child support or wanting child support. You've never found any petitions about custody. This was the first time that she ever filed for any type of custody, okay, let alone appear at any of the previous hearings. Okay, so this is a clear indication that it was through retaliation. We received the court master's hearing date on December the 3rd, 2019. So lies, 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 and more lies. Let me show some inconsistencies that I didn't realize as I was receiving this documentation in live time, but as I was putting this project and this documentary together, I started to notice something very, very, very intriguing, and that is this, that on November 7, 2019, as I just showed you in the previous slide, my ex-wife, the mother of my children, she filed for primary physical custody. Now, she lied and stated that I'm not getting the kids, right? And the entire time, she was brainwashing these children, okay, alienating my children away from me and also withholding them from me. Now, literally 3 months prior, she contradicted herself, and I showed you this slide a few moments ago, the one on your right of your screen, where she filed a contempt on August 13, 2019. And that's when she stated that I wouldn't give them back. Remember, it says, remember in line 4, it says, mother states that father has not returned children to her. Remember, she filed the contempt? Right. Some of you remember those slides earlier. She filed contempt. Okay. So first, you're saying November 7th, mother states that father's not getting the children with order. And then a few months prior to that, stated that mother states that father has not returned children. So which one is it? Which one is it? I wouldn't return them in August, but then in November you're saying I'm not getting them. Which one is it? But once again, family court did not hold her accountable for these games that she has been playing. Okay. Now, I want to show another inconsistency, another pattern we see again. We've seen this pattern in August 2019. Remember, she filed for contempt August 13th, 2019, right? And then that was literally 8 days. Remember now, that was 8 days prior to my hearing for a modification of child support on August the 21st, 2019. For y'all that's following me intently and you remember that slide, right? Let's see that pattern repeat itself 3 months later. Now, you've seen this slide before on the left. November 14, 2019 was our upcoming child support modification. But guess what happened 7 days prior to November 14, 2019? Y'all just saw this slide a few seconds ago. She filed for modification of custody, requesting for primary physical custody of the children. 7 days prior, you see what's happening is between 7 and 8 days prior to a child support modification hearing, she goes play with the custody court. Y'all see this? Y'all seen it in August. You've seen it in August, and now I'm proving it that it happened again here. Don't take my word for it. I'm gonna bring the slide right back. Here it go right here. Remember this slide? Some of y'all that didn't peep it earlier, you didn't catch it earlier, you're gonna catch it now. August 13th, remember she filed for contempt. Number 4 states again, mother states that father has not returned children to her. She filed this 8 days prior to the August the 21st, 2019 modification of child support. So between 7 and 8 days prior to us having to sit in front of a conference officer or court master for modification of that child support money, now she wants to go to the custody courts. Y'all understand what's happening now? Yes, I know you do. I know you see what's going on, okay? And what is it doing? It's causing me more psychological and emotional draining, okay? And this is where mental health crisis in my life still repeatedly happening over and over again. But there was a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, because when I filed on July 12, 2019 for that modification of child support, you saw that in August and in September, as I proved to you earlier, that there was some gender bias and discrimination. And that's what led to this new court date in November 14th, as I shared before. And so this conference officer, who did a great job, upheld the law, received all of my health records, all of my evidence, and everything else that was presented to her on my behalf. She followed the law, and she saw through some of the lies that were told by my ex-wife, the mother of my children. And she did the right thing that should have been done months and months prior. She actually suspended, dismissed a child support order and any arrears. Okay? So the child support was suspended, and you see the date before you, December 3rd, 2019. Okay? Of course, she was angry, my ex-wife, mother of my children, and I'm sure there was some retaliation that was going to continue. That's just her MO. Being vindictive, misusing the system, manipulating the public to believe all of these lies about my character and how of a poor father that I am. And not only the public was receiving that information and lies, but these lies were being planted and poisoning the minds of innocent victims, my children, causing them to be alienated from me. And don't take my words that I'm saying to you now. You can read a text message that I sent to her on January the 14th, 2020, and I will not read it word for word because it is pretty long, and I know we're pressed for time. We're on time constraints, and I don't want to hold you all too long, and I appreciate your participation and your time journeying with me in this documentary. But one of the things that I shared with her, I actually said it right in this text message. I said it. I said, let the record reflect you have violated the physical and legal custody order for the last 3.5 months by withholding my kids from me and transferring them out of the county schools without my legal consent. And then towards the end, I said it the best. Your mind games and lies has had a negative impact on these kids. That's what I said. On January 14, 2020, that was a text message that I sent personally to the mother of my children, my ex-wife. Let's look at President Barack Obama's words that he said in the speech. Children who grow up without a father is 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. So if a mother believed these statistics, why keep the child or children away from a good father? Okay, this is the question I have. That's just a real question I wanted to ask that. I wanted to ask that question. Okay. Anyway, so we see that there was a conference officer who was being biased against me. Unfortunately, again, in one of the hearings on the left-hand side of your screen, February the 4th, 2020, because the tables have turned now. And I only saw my children for about maybe 3 days in between this time. Between the time I sent that text message in January and now in February, I still didn't see them. But moving forward, I did see them again, but that was later on towards the middle of the year of 2020. But I said all that to say that was one of the reasons why I even filed for child support, because I was trying to maintain my shared custody agreement, and because of my financial situation, and also because her financial situation changed actually for the better. However, my children was not receiving the benefits and the fruits of those labors from their mother financially. Okay, and so there was a virtual hearing rescheduled because of the bias and discrimination again on February the 4th, and I wanted to go the next step in the legal process, which is conference officer, then the court master, and then after that is the actual judge. Okay, so that second step in the legal process was sitting before a conference master, and that virtual hearing was scheduled on March the 18th, 2020. And so from what I was informed of, both court proceedings combined at a later date, which is the ones that you see presented for you for custody, okay? And remember, there was the contempt order that she filed, and then there was the modification of custody that I filed as well. And you see those dates at the bottom of each of these court documents as well. Moving right along, there was a phone call that I received from the Pennsylvania Office of State Inspector General, Bureau of Fraud Prevention and Prosecution, because at that time, once I received that phone call on May 21st, there was an ongoing investigation from that office of my ex-wife, because basically the children were with her first, and then the situation happened with DHS, and then the welfare department basically transferred those benefits that she was receiving from the government agency, the welfare department, to me, and because they had to go to a different school and they reside in a different county. And then, of course, when she subsequently removed them from that county by transferring them out of the school to maintain those governmental benefits, and of course, through welfare, medical assistance, and all those things, and of course, child support, that's when I guess it alerted the system. Okay. And so they called me to get information on that, and I had to send them an email of all this evidence and all these evidentiary documents to prove that, number one, my children did reside with me, and they were enrolled in a different county, and they were not in Philadelphia school district the entire time, and they were not living at that address where they reside with their mother the entire time. There was 2 different residential addresses listed on the system, and it triggered the system. And so they wanted to make sure that there was no fraud that was being, there was no fraud being administered by me. Okay, so I had to send them all these statements. And this was just the email just to show some of the things that I had mentioned inside of that email to the investigator of the Pennsylvania Office of State Inspector General, Bureau of Fraud Prevention and Prosecution. Okay, all right, and that's what you see on the left-hand side of your screen. That's me, and then on the right-hand side of your screen, that's the actual investigator, and his name is redacted to protect his identity as well, that he sent to me. And this is some of the portions of that live email that I sent to him, because I had to make an actual statement. One of the things that I said here and that is highlighted is that her true motive of transferring our children back into Philadelphia School District is to continue to misuse and abuse the Department of Human Services system to regain SNAP and medical assistance benefits for our children by maintaining school records under her current Philadelphia residence. And then right beneath that, I actually gave the investigators some statistics that I actually investigated myself to show that there was a total distinction between the Medacton School District and their academic criteria, comparing it to Philadelphia School District. And one of the things that I said is that Martin Luther King High School nationwide ranking is 13,345 out of 17,792 of high schools in America. Their statewide ranking is 511 to 671 out of high schools in Pennsylvania. Their city ranking is 193 out of 264 high schools in Philadelphia, with a graduation ratio under 51%. And I actually concluded by stating that I said her name, for her to transfer our children from a blue ribbon and high ranked school district in the state of Pennsylvania only illustrates and magnify her true motive by sacrificing our children's education to misuse and abuse the Department of Human Services and the Department of Welfare. That is what I stated, and some other things along with my evidence. Months later, I sent her a letter via certified mail, where in the letter I stated some things that I wanted to share with her. I was on a block list at this point anyway, so I couldn't say these things over the phone or a text message. So I decided the only way I could get in contact with her to keep the peace without banning her presence, as far as, domestic violence environment that I was trying to exclude and remove myself from any potential of having, I wrote her a letter. And this is the first page of the letter. The second page was an updated or modified custody agreement, so that we wouldn't have to continue to go through the court system of our upcoming hearing. And then we can just get it notarized and it becomes a legal documentation. So I'll just read just the highlighted parts in this letter. Since October 22nd, 2019, you have violated our current physical and legal shared custodial agreement by intentionally refusing to meet me at the 14th Police District to drop off our children and place them in my care. I moved on to say, which I will read in the second paragraph, and it states these words: regardless of any previous issues in the past, I forgive you. Okay? I move on to say, I urge you to stop poisoning the minds of our children against me and keeping them away from me. Final paragraph states, enclosed in this certified letter, you will find an amended custody agreement. And at your leisure, please review all the terms of the agreement. If you agree, may you sign and return it to me via mail so that we may have it notarized as legal documentation. Okay? And this letter was sent certified through the United States Postal Service. See the receipt posted right here on June 9th of 2020. Okay? Moving right along. The next month, actually 2 months later, in August of 2020, which she did not sign the agreement nor responded to the letter, she made sure that she responded with retaliation by filing, I think she called DHS on me and stated that I beat up my daughter, my oldest daughter. I started punching her in the face. She claimed that I punched my daughter, in the face repeatedly, which was false and totally not true. She also filed a police report as well with that lie. And then she also stated that my mother did the same thing, and also that my children, when they were with me on my custody time, that I made them go to bed hungry, or I wouldn't feed them. They went to bed hungry and didn't eat. And that was not, that allegation also was false. And so the DHS worker emailed me, told me that I had to take pictures of my daughter immediately, which was the next day of these allegations, which I did. I took pictures of my daughter's neck and face, and the pictures at the bottom of your screen on the left are blacked out because I was just protecting the image and the identity of my daughter. But when I sent the emails, of course, there were no bruises and different things of that nature that I had to send to this DHS worker. And then what I did, literally the next day, I actually sent evidence to the court master, because we had an upcoming child support case the week following, or 6 days following that, on August 27th, 2020. And I just wanted to notify the judge that I already knew that these false police reports against me, accusing me of child abuse, was an attempt to refrain from, number one, paying child support by having our children in our care at the time of our upcoming hearing. This is the games that was being played, and then I actually said it here: I never abused my children or never jeopardized their safety in my care. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out as well. And for credibility purposes, I also wanted to point out, the fact that, their mother have a history of lying to the public, manipulating the public to believe basically that she's honest, basically that everything she says as a victim, she's right. And I'm only posting this right here for credibility purposes. I do not care if she graduated from hair school or not. It's none of my business. And if she did, great. I know she didn't, but if she did at the time of this documentary, great. But if she didn't, my whole purpose is not to, make fun of her for not graduating. I wanted to put that out there because that's important. I was doing this because you can see that she has a history of going to the public through social media and spreading lies, saying one thing, and then when you go do your due diligence and you pull up information and cross-reference, you'll see that she was not being honest about even graduating from school. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can go back on the Pennsylvania website yourself, and you'll see that there's no data available to see her license as a cosmetologist. And even if you don't take my word for it, you can take her own testimony that she even stated in the court hearing on July 27, 2020 and August 27, 2020, where she stated these words as the court officer was actually typing this in. The court master was typing this testimony in. As you see it highlighted, she says that she is a trained cosmetologist, but is not licensed and does not practice. That's what she said by her own admission when she testified under oath in family court. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the previous slide showed that she was telling the truth, that she is a trained cosmetologist, but because she did not graduate nor take the state exam, she is not licensed. The lie part, though, is that she does not practice. And what I'm showing is credibility issues. What I'm showing is constant lies under oath in court. And a lot of mothers, not all, but a lot of mothers go in court under oath in the family court system and lie. Why? To make the father appear like a deadbeat dad. Why? To gain more child support money. Why? To maintain custody, to alienate the child or children away from the father. This stuff happens every day. And what happens is when these lies are not being held accountable by the courts, it psychologically and emotionally drains good fathers. Okay? Don't take my word for it. I don't have this highlighted, but if you want to read letter E, it talks about her work experience and her earning history. This is all documented by her own testimony. You see the work experience and earning history. So if a mother's going in court with this type of work history, with this type of earning history, with this type of work experience, look at those numbers. Then what you think is going to happen to the father who has to pay child support? Because his income is going to shoot up to the roof while this mother's income is low. And this is happening intentionally. Some mothers have the availability and the ability to work and earn a significant wage, but to misuse and manipulate the family court system, this is what some mothers unfortunately do. And we have to call a spade, okay? And then on top of that, receive food stamps and medical assistance from public assistance, okay? There's nothing wrong with it when you need assistance and need help. I'm not talking about that. Okay, my heart goes out to anyone who needs resources and support. All of us need some kind of support and resources. My point is saying that if a mother is receiving all of these benefits and then working a few hours or 30 hours a week, making $2 an hour, or waitressing or getting tips underneath the table with cash or whatever, but then they have a good father that's providing for his child, that's not right. Now, if you have a deadbeat dad while you have all these resources, that's something different. You need these resources. If you're a mother, you need resources such as food stamps, medical assistance from public assistance, when you don't have the support from the other father because he is not being a good father, he's being a deadbeat. You need these resources. But I praise you, mothers, good mothers. I'm talking about the other ones who have good fathers of their child or children, still receiving these services, but they're alienating the kid or kids or children from the good father. That's what I'm talking about. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. And as you can see, she testified under oath here that there is no other income in her household other than her husband's. Okay? So we see right here that those were lies under oath in court. These are posts directly from her Instagram page. It looks to me that she is receiving income. That's what it looked like to me. And not just receiving income, but she says she does not practice. Her words, not mine. You've seen her testimony. She is a trained cosmetologist, but she is not licensed and she does not practice. That's what she said. But she is not licensed. That was true. But the lie was she does not practice. Here it is right here. She's practicing here. Now somebody can say, oh man, there's no proof that she's receiving any compensation for it. It's true. But if it was just a hobby, you wouldn't say words like this in the July 7th, 2020 post, book now. You wouldn't say in the post of July 23rd, 2020, appointments available for next week, book now. You wasn't receiving compensation, or you were not practicing. You wouldn't say, like you said on August 31st, 2020, appointments available, please be deposits ready when booking. You see that? But in the hearing date on July 27th, 2020 and August 27th, 2020, y'all saw her testimony. Says she does not practice. Okay? That ain't all you saw by her own testimony. You saw that she testified that there is no other income in her household other than her husband's. Well, this picture is a picture of her actually practicing and receiving compensation in the basement of her own household. That's the basement, y'all. That's not her house. I mean, that is her house. That's not in the salon. That's in her house. That's in the household right there. These are lies that's being told under oath in family court to destabilize me, to receive more and more child support, which is not only causing me financial draining, but it's causing me psychological and emotional draining. And then on top of that, poisoning the kids' minds so that they can be alienated against me and not even see their father, spend time with their father. And don't take my word for it. These are a few police reports. I have a lot of these. I'm only just showing a few of them for the sake of the scope of this documentary. You see the DC numbers up top as well. Okay? You see the dates as well. Now, this is the actual testimony in that same court hearing, okay, where you saw her talking about not practicing, not being licensed, receiving public assistance. There's all the previous slides that you saw. Only income in her household is just her husband's. There's no other. This is more testimony. There's more lies. And I highlighted them. Excuse me. She's the obliger. I'm the obligee. She admitted in court. She testified that the children are with her 100% of the time. So there she is. She's admitting it right there. But where she lied at and said, she testified that the obliger is not picking the children up. Wasn't true. Y'all see my police reports? We have more. Now let's move on to something else. This is equally important. I'm the obligee. Next highlight says this, and it should say ask in between, but it says obligee, which is me. I asked, that's me. Let me read it the way it's written. Obligee asked if he can pick up the children on Wednesday. And she said yes. And he asked her what time. She said anytime. But when he said at 5 o'clock p.m., she said no. Okay? I'll read on a little bit because I want to put this in context. It moves on to say that obliger testified that her oldest, I should say oldest daughter, but oldest says she does not want to go to obligee because obligee punches her. And what did I testify, y'all? I testified that it is false. He testified that he does not hit his children. What else did I testify? Obligee testified that obliger is brainwashing the children. What else did I testify? He testified that she is violating the custody order and not allowing him to see his children. How did she respond to that? She lied. Obliger testified that is not true. Let's move on to the next highlight. What did I testify? Obligee testified that he sent her a certification to sign about a meeting place and she would not sign. Let's see how she responded to that. Obliger testified that she did not sign the documents Obligee sent to her. So that's where she was telling the truth. I give her credit for being honest. This is the documentation that was certified. I showed you the slide before. She would not sign it. She testified that she did not sign it. Okay. Next day after court. Finally, because she said on the oath that I can finally get my kids now. And she would finally meet me at the 14th Police District. And she would finally drop the kids off to me. After 9 months of withholding them from me from October 2019, y'all saw this in the previous slide, to finally now, thank God, 9 months later, I can finally see my children. And this is a text message that I sent her. She was giving me some resistance in the previous text. There has some different things in there that I do not want to present, okay, because I'm not here to embarrass anyone, all right? But let's move forward with this. We did not fully agree to those terms due to you being uncooperative with the time I presented in our child support hearing. Our custody agreement states Wednesday evening through Saturday afternoon, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 12 p.m. at the 14th District location is reasonable. I will adhere to the above schedule as per our custody agreement. She responded to me 3 minutes later, 8:43 p.m. This is what it says. Per our court hearing, July 27th at 11 a.m., the agreed time with the master was at 5 p.m. On Wednesday, July 29th, was the pickup time at 14th District. You presented the time, and we agreed before the master that time on a recorded court hearing. We will be there at the time you requested before the master, which is 5 p.m. for you to get the children. I had a question real quick, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury. Do y'all remember us ever agreeing to that time that I presented? Right, neither do I. Let's move on. Let's hear my response at 8:56 p.m. You disagreed with the 5 o'clock time I presented before the court master in a recorded court hearing. So the times I am now presenting are feasible. I will not argue or play your mind game with you. You see how I got to keep reminding her? I'm not playing mind games with you, because y'all saw this in the previous slide before about me talking about mind games. I'm not playing with her. Yep. Okay, moving forward. Wednesdays at 7 p.m. through Saturdays at 12 p.m. at the 14th Police District. To keep the peace, no reply is necessary. Good night. And what her response was, I never disagreed to the time. That's what she said. But here in the third thing that's highlighted, bring her testimony back up. Since she said she never disagreed to the time, let's read it again, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury. Obligee, remember I'm the obligee, she's the obliger. Obligee asked if he can pick up the children on Wednesday, and she said yes. And he asked her what time. She said anytime. But when he said at 5:00 p.m., she said no. But in the text message, she said she never disagreed to the time, which is why I was presenting another time, a more feasible time, maybe 7:00 p.m. And guess what actually happened, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury? She did keep her word, and she came to the police district at 5:00 p.m. Even though in court, she said no. Why did she do that? So that at 7:00 p.m., when I arrived to pick up my children, she can tell the children, see, it's 5:00, y'all. See, your dad don't love you. Y'all dad don't want to see y'all. He wouldn't even come to pick y'all up at 5:00, even though she know in her heart, what she said under oath, okay? And why was that? To manipulate the children, to believe in, oh man, my dad really didn't want to see us. He left us hanging. These are mind games that's being played that continue to alienate my children against me, okay? Wanted to just point that out there. And these are some of the police reports that I told you I would show you guys on different days with a DC number attached, and the dates are included and highlighted, and some of them have the time listed as well. Anyway, needless to say, needless to say, I have a lot more of these police reports, but I just didn't want to bombard you all with a lot of them, you know, because of the sake of time and the scope of the documentary. But with that being said, moving right along. Now, I want to say this before I move forward. As some of you are reviewing these documents that you see on your screen, I appreciate your time once again. Thank you for journeying with me through this process of my grief and trauma in my pursuit of maintaining a healthy relationship with my children and being a good father. And most of these things that occurred in my journey, psychologically and emotionally, and even financially draining, okay? The most draining thing, psychologically and emotionally, was the fact that on September the 17th, 2020, nearly a month after that child support proceeding you saw in the previous slide, despite me following all of the family court laws applicable to my circumstances, I not only lost shared physical custody of my children at no fault of my own, but all of my documentary evidence was rejected by the judge, even though I sent it to the courts and to my ex. My evidence proved that she violated every custody agreement for an entire year. So what you see on the left side of your screen, because I was required by law to send the same documents which is highlighted, that I sent to the judge to present in our custody hearing to her on the same day of the court hearing, which was September 17th. You see that I sent it through Staples. My printer was acting up on me as I was trying to send it, so I had to go and send it through Staples. So I'll give you guys a little bit of chance to review that. And you can also see at the bottom, it's highlighted that mother should have primary physical custody of the children. And even if you say the judge may have had all great reasons to basically take my custody away from me and provide her with primary physical custody of the children, one of the things that really discouraged me and even surprised me once I started to put this project together was that the same judge who basically gave my ex-wife, the mother of my children, primary full custody of my children at no fault of my own, and even rejecting my physical evidence that I presented to the judge, that she was the one violating every custody agreement for an entire year, which was on September 17, 2020. She was the same judge a few years prior that denied my exceptions through child support hearing. Some of you may remember this slide on the right-hand side of your screen. You might remember this slide here. I thought that was very interesting. That was the same judge. She denied my exceptions in 2018, and 2 years later in 2020, she's the one that the my shared custody away from me, even though didn't even get a chance to see my children in 9 months. No fault of my own. Their safety was never jeopardized. I never made them or allowed them to go to bed or go at any time hungry. I proved that all the allegations against me publicly and privately were false, and that she was alienating me against my children. And y'all saw me mention this to her privately in a text message. Y'all have seen me mention this in a letter in June of 2020, a few months prior to this date. And you've also heard me a month prior to this date in August and July 2020, one and 2 months prior to this date, where I actually told the child support court master that she was poisoning and alienating my children against me and violating the order. So you've seen me share this with the courts and with my ex-wife, the mother of my children, privately. And then this happened. And so even if the judge had reason, legitimate reason, to say this man doesn't deserve full custody of his children, we're going to snatch his shared physical custody and give it what this mother asked for, which was primary custody. Even if she had evidence of that, and I lost fair and square, I'm okay with that. But here's the part that really disturbed me. The part that really disturbed me is at the custody hearing, the judge requested to speak to my children in person on the same day, not in a different hearing, but on the same day of September 17, 2020, even though the courts were closed due to COVID-19. Hence is the reason why myself and the mother, my ex-wife, was on a virtual hearing. Oh, so we can't come to court. We have to have a virtual hearing. But lo and behold, my children can come to court, and not in a hearing, but to speak to the judge privately, even though there's COVID-19 and all the courts were closed. My ex-wife, the mother of the children, already had them in her care, which is a clear violation of the custody order. Why is that? Why was that a clear violation of the custody order? Because if you look at this 2020 calendar that I pulled up in September, on September 2017, September 17th fell on a Thursday. And we already know this already, that my custody schedule was from Wednesday to Saturday. This day was on a Thursday. So that meant technically my children should have been in my physical custody at the time of this hearing. So how did the mother get the opportunity to transport these children to see the judge privately when the courts were closed due to COVID-19 on September 17th, a Thursday? That alone is a violation of the custody before the court hearing even began. And guess what? The judge never asked my ex-wife, the mother of the children, never asked her, well, wait a minute. If you have the children in your custody and it's Thursday, and this father is supposed to have them in his custody, how are you going to transport them to me? You shouldn't even have them in your custody as a mother. They should be with their father. See that? So even if this judge, and I'm not insinuating anything, but I do want y'all to understand why this is psychologically and emotionally draining me at this point, and why do I feel that there's gender discrimination by some people that represent the family court system. This is only proving my point. So I'm not here to defame the character of the judge or anything like that. I'm just saying, if this judge sat there and saw the fact that my ex-wife, the mother of these children, was violating the custody order on that Thursday when they were in her care, why would she then reject my evidence? Didn't admit my evidence, even though I sent the evidence 72 hours prior to the court hearing, and still took my custody away from my children at no fault of my own, and gave full custody to my ex-wife, the mother of my children. And subsequently following that, these are some of the things that occurred due to parental alienation, and due to my children acting out, and due to my children not having balance in their lives and growing older, okay, through this parental alienation, and through the abuse that they were suffering year after year. These are some of the things that occurred. My oldest daughter was kicked out of the house by her mother, okay? Then she came back, and then kicked out again, and then came back, and then allegedly ran away. Okay. And I didn't find out until August 7th, even though, according to the police report, which is public record at this point, she was missing since July 28th. I didn't find out until August 7th. Mother never talked to me about it. My children were asked to lie to me about it, and they did. When I was asking for the whereabouts of my daughter, I was just asking because I realized that my daughter wasn't responding to any of my messages and phone calls, which was they were been doing. So, yeah, just wanted to give y'all time to read some of these text messages between myself and the mother of my children. So that was one of the things that happened. And then subsequently following that, there were some other things that took place as well. Pressing this for the slide to move forward is not cooperating with me. And if I keep sliding, if I keep pressing it, it'll probably keep skipping slides. So unfortunately, it's not allowing me to move the slides. Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the delay. Give me 1 second, okay? 1 second. I want to try to get these slides here, okay? I want you guys to see this, and I appreciate your time again. It's technical difficulty here. Let's try to see if we can get it this way. Give me 1 second, okay? Since I'm able to share my screen this way, hopefully I'm able to show you that document that I told you the button skipped. If you recall, the button skipped twice on me earlier, and I was unable to show you all that slide where there's the PFA order that was given to me. Here's the slide right here. Hopefully you all can see this. Can you all see this? You saw the one in the middle before, but the other two. Just wanted to show that to you guys. And let's go to the current slide. And let's see if we could get that back. I know this looks tacky for a documentary as far as me going in this way, but I appreciate your time. Let's see if we can come from here. Oh, it still won't let me go there. Huh. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Still not letting me go, huh? All right. Okay, well, I tried, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what's going on with the slide. Not letting me. Oh, there we are. I apologize. Here we go. Let's see if it'll work now. So this is my second daughter. So you saw the previous slide with my first daughter in July of 2021, but a few months later, situation happened where my second daughter allegedly ran away from her mother. Okay, even though she was kicked out as well by her mother and kicked out. But anyway, 2 days after my daughter ran away, this was a post that was posted by her mother, my ex-wife, on her Instagram page, basically stating that my daughter was not missing. Her dad, referring to me, wants attention. Don't give it to him. Another way of her manipulating the public and defaming my character again with lies. Unfortunately, guess she was upset that the post was still up, which I posted on my page. I had posted on my page to garner some more support from my Facebook friends and Instagram followers to assist in the process of helping me return my daughter back in the custody of her mother, safe and sound. Moving right along, this is another one of my children. This was unfortunately truancy issue. I won't even say truancy issue. I would say it exceeded truancy limit. The school district and the members of that particular school did not file any truancy charges or even report any truancy issues to the higher authority of the Philadelphia School District. Why? I don't know. Needless to say, that this is the records from the first day of school to the last day of school last year, which was August 31st, 2021, all the way to June 14, 2022, as far as the attendance record. And by the way, he was living with his mother. This is my son, by the way, here, living with his mother. All of my children, obviously she has primary physical custody of them, as y'all see. And all of these things are happening on her watch. And the reason why I obviously was not allowed to be an active good father, like I've been the entire time, is due to parental alienation. Okay, and most of you may not have heard the term, but parental alienation is basically emotional child abuse. Okay, and basically is a set of strategies whereby one parent intentionally displays to the child unjustified negativity aimed at the other parent. And the purpose of this strategy is to damage the child's relationship with the other parent and to turn the child's emotions against that other parent, which in turn will allow that child or children to experience what's known as parental alienation syndrome. And what happens is that parental alienation syndrome develops in children who are indoctrinated by alienating parents to hate, insult, fear, and reject the targeted parent as someone unworthy of having a relationship with them without any legitimate justification. And according to the words of Dr. Richard Gardner, who is a PhD psychologist, he actually said these words: "This can only be applicable," and I quote, "when the hated parent has not abused or neglected its child or exhibited any behavior that would justify the child's animosity toward that parent." So I never displayed or exhibited any behaviors such as neglect or abuse that will justify my children having animosity toward me, not to have a relationship with me. So at that point, you already realize that there is their mother who is basically using her influence in a negative way to alienate the kids from a good father. Okay, the DSM-5, which we'll talk about a little bit shortly. There's a code for the DSM-5, B995.51. If you have Google, which most of us do, you can actually just Google DSM-5 or DSM B99.51, and you will see that it discusses some of the child's effective patterns by parental alienation distress or parental alienation syndrome. Okay, and according to the American Psychological Association, it actually have some support of their own regarding this. And according to the National Library of Medicine, it states the following. I want to read this one. Parental alienation is a specific form of psychological child abuse. So how do parents alienate their children? There are 17 recognized tactics of parental alienation with 2 distinctively different ways of alienating another parent, right? So these are the 2 distinctively different ways of one parent alienating another parent. The parent will transfer their emotions and beliefs onto the child and get the child to have the same emotions, feelings, and beliefs as the offending parent has towards the targeted parent, okay? The second distinctive different way of alienating another parent is as follows. The offending parent will take actions and set rules that will cause the child to have negative feelings towards the other parent or choose to rather not be with the other parent in order to avoid consequences, okay? And these are the 17 tactics or 17 signs of parental alienation, according to Amy J.L. Baker, who's a PhD, and Paul R. Fine, LCSW. And in May of 2008, they published this book that talks about these 17 signs of parental alienation. And the name of that book, which is my source at the bottom of your screen, and it talks about 17 of these signs. And out of 17 of these signs, I can almost assure you that 13 or 14 of these signs, my children experience these parental alienation tactics from their mother. Okay, unfortunately, but these are true facts. Okay, why do parents alienate the other parent? And there's so many different reasons for alienation, and they may include these ones here. But let's talk about a few of them briefly, and we'll move on. Often, the offending parent has one or a combination of 3 types of disorders, being narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, or some type of sociopathic personality disorder. Remember, I told you in the beginning of this documentary, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, that there are 3 reasons, 3 distinct reasons of why good fathers are prevented from being actively involved in the lives of their child or children. And I mentioned it. I said narcissistic mothers, number 1. Number 2, I said parental alienation. And number 3, the gender discrimination of some people who represent the family court system. I mentioned that earlier. And now we're starting to see how I'm breaking down some of these things. And by the way, I want you to always remember this as I'm explaining this stuff, as we're finishing this documentary. These things cause good fathers psychological and emotional draining. It's overwhelming. It causes grief and trauma. It causes anxiety. Okay? So as you're reading some of the reasons for alienation, you see some of these tactics that were even used in my own situation. Look at number 2. Look at number 1 and number 2. Punishing the other parents and getting revenge. You've seen this already, me being punished as a good father. You've seen this already, retaliation tactics and getting revenge on me. You've seen this already. Number 2, for financial gain by getting sole custody of the children. Didn't you just see that, ladies and gentlemen? Members of the jury? Y'all saw that, right? Okay. What is narcissistic personality disorder? Here's the source right here at the bottom of your screen. The American Psychiatric Association talks about this, the DSM-5. We talked about that earlier when I said the DSM-5. Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder. This is the manual that psychologists use to treat and diagnose people that have mental disorders. These are some of the narcissistic personality disorder traits and characteristics that you see on your screen here. That's right. Yeah, take a look at some of these. That's right. See what I said? The second from the bottom, what did it say? Smear campaign, rumors, gossip to turn friends, family, and others against another person. See that? Habitual liars, ability to make themselves cry with and without tears, over exaggerating when telling a story, or pretending to be very sickly, or even fake for attention, deflection, playing the blame game, gaslighting, projection. You see that? Playing the victim, arrogance, grandiosity, very vindictive, very manipulative. They target others who are genuine and empathetic. They call it NPD in the world of psychology. What are the effects that alienation have on a child? There's degrees of alienation, okay? Through my studying and my research, there's mild, moderate, and then severe. Those are the 3 degrees of alienation. But a child or a teen being alienated may experience the following things. You got time to look that over real quick. What are the effects on the alienated parent? Remember, I keep saying it's causing psychological and emotional draining. It's overwhelming. It's causing grief and trauma. These are some of the effects that it has on the alienated parents. Live in constant state of mourning for losing the child that they love. Some describe it as dying each day. Experiencing unresolved grief that can lead to depression. We're talking about mental health crisis, ladies and gentlemen. Live in agony with the thought that their child hates them so much that they never want to see them again. Often living in hope that one day their child will return and they can hug their child again and tell them how much they love their child. Okay? This is real. And so how did I come from having these relationships with my children, having closeness with them, providing structure and love and support with them, taking them all kind of places, spending time with them, giving them wisdom, sharing experiences that will give them encouragement and hope when they're going through. Being there at functions to celebrate their accomplishments. Playing board games and cards with them and telling jokes and letting them come to the recording studio with me. These are things that have happened with regards to me spending time with my children over the years. Wrestling with them on the bed and all kind of great experiences that I've had with my children. I can go on and on and on, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury. I can go on and on and on. But there's so many great experiences I had spending time with my children and being actively involved in their lives and seeing them succeed and grow. These are just memories here that I'm posting. These are things that my children said to me in pictures and letters and things that they wrote to me while they were in my care. From the earliest stages of their life all the way up until, you understand? Children don't just have these good, healthy thoughts about their dad and say great things to encourage their dad and want daddy around and telling dad how much they love him and how appreciative they are for dad. These are things that was written and drawn for me over the years from my children that are just mere memories now because they've been alienated away from me by their mother, my ex-wife. How did it get to this closeness? Because I put my time in. But the question is, how did it get from this closeness of my children to now me contacting them over the last couple of years, begging them to spend time with me, telling them, hey, your dad been reaching out to you all, and they're not texting me back, not returning my phone calls, having me on a blocked list over the years, not wishing me a happy Father's Day, not wishing me a happy birthday, even though I share my birthday with my son on the same day and the same date. Parental alienation. Parental alienation. Reaching out to them, telling them how much I want to see them, how much I want to talk to them, asking them how they're doing. I don't know what schools they're going to. School district of Philadelphia telling me to my face that I'm locked out of their system because the mother come down there and stated that I'm no longer to be on the parents list to gain access to them, to gain access to their grades, to take them out of the school. But I came down with my own legal documentation and they changed that and gave me access that I deserved, that I once had. That was lies being told about me from their mother to get me X'd out of their educational experience. My daughters being kicked out of the house here Y'all can read that. Asking one of them, did your mother say you can come back home? No. My other daughter telling me that she's depressed. 16-year-olds and 15-year-olds, teenagers, they shouldn't feel depressed. You understand? This is causing me more psychological and emotional draining because I know my children need me, but I also know that their mother used the system and misused the system and misrepresented the truth to X me out of their lives, knowing they need me more than ever. Okay? Telling them you have my full support as your dad. I'm here for you. So text messages, this is me texting my children. Okay? My daughter telling me she don't know where else to go. She don't know where to go now. I told her go home. That's me in the blue, y'all. That's my words in blue. Go home. Are you near your house? Go home. I can't. Why not? She's telling me. My mom said I can't go back home to her. I've been gone for too many days. I've been gone because she told me not to come. These are text messages that were sent to me in conversation with my children. And I feel helpless. They're going through all of this and there's nothing that I can do. Parental alienation syndrome is what my children are suffering from. And don't take my word for it. Look at the DSM-5. Don't take my word for it. Look at the psychologists. Look at the APA, the National Institute of Psychology. Look at these different organizations. They said it the best. Parental alienation is a form of psychological child abuse. And in closing, in preparation for this documentary, just a few weeks ago, out of no doing of my own, no wrongdoing of my own, the mother of my children asked me back to her old tricks again, filed a new complaint for child support for the 4th time on June 7, 2022. We have an upcoming hearing on August 8, 2022. And this woman has alienated my children away from me, have poisoned their minds against me for the last 10 years. And at the end of the story, this is where it ends right here, causing me more psychological and emotional draining, overwhelming me with trauma and grief, feeling trapped, feeling like the family court system is being gender biased, feeling like there's either narcissistic or borderline or sociopathic personality disorders from this woman, causing my children to be psychologically and emotionally abused and feeling helpless. And so instead of me leaving it here on a bad note, I say that I'm no longer carrying this grief and trauma anymore. I'm looking forward to living my life peacefully and allowing my children to experience a relationship, a healthy relationship with me, and going through the processes to get them whatever emotional and psychological support that they need to overcome parental alienation syndrome. And in the interim of that, I actually went through my own process of going to therapy, and I'm still healing as we speak right now. I'm on the 1st floor though. I'm gonna get to the top floor, and there's no timetable to that, but I know I will overcome. And so one of the things that I did is this documentary as a project, obviously to help me overcome this grief and trauma, put those negative things behind me and look forward to new healing. I established my own nonprofit organization called Dads Overcoming Losses, Living Above Reproach Incorporated. And our mission here at Dollar, and our purpose, is to raise awareness of the grief and trauma that fathers have experienced and is currently experiencing through losses, promoting crisis intervention and providing resources and support that create a stable mental health environment for fathers to overcome, including those who are otherwise financially incapable of obtaining such services, qualified for exemption under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3 as a charitable organization providing relief to the poor and distressed. And so I'm looking for fathers, good fathers, may I add, good fathers, to be a part of our organization, to help us raise awareness, to receive support and resources, crisis intervention, to receive support and resources to overcome losses that make good fathers feel trapped and psychologically and emotionally drained and overwhelmed with anxiety, trauma, and grief. And so these are pieces of information where you can contact us through our website, our email address, our YouTube channel, Instagram. We have a Facebook private group. We have a toll-free number to be able to be accessible to good fathers all around this country. And we encourage women to be a part of our process, good mothers to be a part of our process, local organizations to be a part of our process, because a lot of good fathers have made the wrong decisions based on their emotional and psychological state that have caused others harm, including domestic violence, including homicide, including imprisonment, all because there was not a lot of resources and support for that father to help him overcome as he's going through his grief and trauma in pursuit of being a good father. And so we ask for all donations. All donations are acceptable, and we appreciate any amount of donation through our PayPal QR code, which you see here. We have a Cash App, $ Dads Overcoming is the name of it. You can donate directly through our website. It will send you to our PayPal landing page so that you can donate. All donations are appreciated, and they directly support good fathers experiencing some of the things that you've heard in this documentary today. And I also want to put this out there as well as a disclaimer that our 501c3 tax exempt status is currently being processed. Okay, to my understanding, we have a few weeks left in that process to receive our determination letter, but we can still accept donations. And your donations and contributions are tax exempt. Even if you donate today, they will be tax exempt once we receive our determination letter from the IRS. And you will receive a receipt for that. And we appreciate it. And I want to say thank you again for your time. Thank you again for journeying with me. I know we had some technical difficulties with the slide pausing. I do apologize again for that. Make the documentary look a little tacky, but I was well prepared. And I'm glad that you all kind of hung in there with me. I know it took a long time for me to get all that information out and to fully express myself. And just having that monkey off my back provides me with a lot of relief. That when I do go to the hearing, the upcoming hearing on August 8th, I will not have anxiety. I will not have trauma and grief. And I will not be overwhelmed by being psychologically and emotionally drained because of the resources and support that I'm currently receiving through therapy and even for the nonprofit Dads Overcoming Losses, Living Above Reproach Incorporated, and even your support, which is necessary. And once again, to all dads out there, keep up the good work, you good fathers. Never give up on your children, no matter how hard it is, no matter how many obstacles confront you. Your children do love you and they miss you, and they still need you. And one day, when the smoke clears, you can raise your head high. You will hear the words, Dad, it's okay. I love you.